Hello everybody, my name is Professor Rich. Grab yourself a notepad and write down any interesting phrases you hear while I'm talking. Today I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence and the future of language teaching. You know, something that's been a bit of a hot topic in communicative language teaching for some time now. A long time, actually. Surprisingly long time, actually. Maybe 25 years? Like before I even became a teacher. And that is, when will we see the end of communicative language teaching? Communicative language teaching is the type of teaching that I do, which is that I teach language, teach English, and I do that through a means of communication. So the classes are designed for students to communicate, to use the language and learn the language at the same time. So English is both the medium of instruction, the medium of communication in the classroom, and also the object of the learning. It's what we want to learn. So for a long time, there's been sort of paranoia with teachers, because a lot of communicative language teachers, serious ones especially, really like it. Myself included. Not only do I like teaching, but I particularly like communicative language teaching because it gives me so many options. There's so many things that I can do. There's no sort of limits to the range of topics that I could potentially talk about because everything involves language. So it gives you so much freedom as a teacher. Occasionally you get institutions that give you a syllabus and want you to teach a certain thing or whatever. But in general, you have a lot of freedom to do topics that you're passionate about. And that means you come across as passionate, and that means that students feel engaged, and that means that it works well for everybody. But as I said, teachers have been paranoid for a long time now about the end of this. And this, obviously, it's normally technology they talk about, but there's other things as well. Back in the late 90s, they were talking a lot about remote teaching. And oh my God, they're going to have these call centers with teachers paid $5 an hour, and they'll be doing online lessons, and everyone will choose them and not book classes with me because they'll be so cheap. Well, that didn't happen. I mean, you can find that, but most people don't want it. At the low end of the market, maybe. And then, you've got these apps and these websites, Duolingo and things like that. People started to talk about that and how that was going to be the next thing, and oh my God, it's the end and all the rest of it. And it wasn't. Duolingo became a useful thing, a useful complementary device for students. Some exceptional students who self-study do use Duolingo, and they don't necessarily have teachers outside of that. Good for them. I'm very happy for them. I use Duolingo myself. I think it's a useful tool. And that was in the 2000s. And now we're in the next sort of phase now, aren't we? Where we're in sort of 2023. And the situation now is we have ChatGPT. And we've got the sort of paranoia about that being the next thing which is going to end communicative language teaching once and for all. And so that's the latest enemy of communicative language teaching. It's the latest thing that's going to bring it all to an end. And it won't. But it might start to change things. Especially when we start to get customized versions of these things coming out, which are specifically intended to teach languages. And I'm sure they'll be very good and very useful for many people. But they're still not going to replace communicative language teaching, not yet. And, well, there's a few questions about this, isn't there? Sort of, when might this happen and what will it mean? And is it a good thing or a bad thing? Well, first of all, technology happens, doesn't it? And I don't think it's just teachers that have to be concerned about their jobs in the future. I think a lot of people have to be concerned about their jobs in the future. I mean, taxi drivers, how long do they have left? It's got to be worrying if you're a taxi driver. But I'm not that worried being a communicative language teacher. I think that's going to be one of the things which actually stays for quite a while. Even though I actually believe that these AI bots do have a lot of utility. I think they are useful. But people still want a teacher for the moment. And probably for the next 20 years. And probably for the next 30 years. And maybe for the next 40 years. And eventually we'll see some kind of a shift. Particularly when it becomes economically viable and the quality's there. But of course, you have to ask yourself, by that point, will people even want to learn languages? Because by that point, these things will be automatically translating things and speaking into an earpiece. And the only people who'll learn languages will be people who'll just be fascinated by the culture and the language itself, which, by the way, I actually really like students like that. They're some of the best students you could possibly get. They learn the language really quickly, and, you know, they're learning because they want to learn rather than learning because they have to learn. So we've got that whole intrinsic, extrinsic motivation thing coming up. So it's not necessarily something that depresses me or worries me that much. I think it just is. And it's something we all have to be aware of. We have to be ready to adapt. Everyone has to be ready to adapt. If a big change happens and your industry gets kind of interrupted by these artificial intelligence bots. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Like, share, subscribe, and as always, I will catch you